This program contains language that is intended for mature
or
immature audiences. Anyone affiliated with this train wreck of a show assumes no responsibility for its content. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hide the kids and pop the top on a cold one. Coming to you from the extravagant studio at SAA Productions in Charleston, West Virginia, please welcome the inebriated cast of Section 304.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Section 304. We're drinking beers, talking ears, as always. Thank you guys for downloading the show this week. I'm Anthony Lewis. I'm joined in the studio today. John Crum. Matt Durrett is on assignment. We'll hear from him a little bit later in the show. And, of course, producer Steve is in here with us, turning the knobs, keeping us straight. And, well, I'll tell you what, man, we're sitting in a much better position than we were sitting at the end of October. I know it's easier to get in here and do the show. Yesterday, WVU took care of Iowa State like we kind of assumed, but in front of a very sparse crowd. I think that probably had a lot to do with the students and the
weather was brutal.
Yeah,
it drizzled in the first half, and then in the second half it really started raining, and the crowd really thinned out by the end of the game.
Yeah, once you hit a certain number, it's like they're not gonna do anything. But you know, I'll tell you what, it's interesting to see the way, and if you start we're at the point of the season now where you can look back at everything. It's interesting to see how this team has transformed over the course from Georgia State into today. It's been a hell of a ride, that's for sure.
The defense is what we thought it was going to be. That's the big takeaway. They've been really good the last 2 weeks. I thought they were outstanding against Texas Tech, and they've had some adversity, but it was good to see those seniors go out the win. I mean, they kind of started breaking down some of the guys. A lot of those guys have battled injuries and have been here from the time we moved to the Big 12. They've been gone through some ups and downs. I mean, you had a guy like Jared Barber who blew his knee out, then hurt his shoulder. Kwiatkowski hurt his shoulder. Chestnut blew his knee out, and I think twice. And then of course Carl Joseph. He got the loudest ovation when they introduced the seniors.
He come out first?
No, he came out last.
Okay.
And he kind of embodies this team and this program. And I think Holgerson pretty much said that after the game. So it was good for them to go out with the win. I don't think we've won our last home game since 2012.
Yeah, it's sitting at 7-4. It's just kind of where I thought we would be sitting. It's interesting, though, like I said, if you take a look back at the way this schedule is played out, like you said, the defense is where it is. I think the losing Carl Joseph maybe hurt us a little bit. It just was the worst possible time.
That was the one guy. He was the heart and soul of the team, and it took them a little while to recover, but they're playing really good football. Iowa State's record isn't that good, but they're not bad,
right?
And they've played some teams close. They're pretty close to being maybe a 5-5 team, but the first half was a little shaky, I thought. They really committed to stopping our run game, which is, if you've watched us the last 3 or 4 weeks, that's what you would do. And Gibson hit a big play in the first quarter.
Good to see him back.
And then the thing I loved about that was he makes this unreal play. He looked like Tavon Austin to me on that play where he reversed field.
Yeah.
And then the next play on the kickoff, he made the tackle. So I think fans were down on this team, but I don't think these guys have ever given up. They have circled the wagons, and I look forward to watching us next week. Kansas State's kind of been a thorn in our side since we've gotten the Big 12. And of course they're well coached, but they're not very good. So to be able to go in and beat them, that would be to finish 8-4. Everyone, all things considered, I think you would have to consider that a successful season. We didn't accomplish our goal of, I guess, moving into the top 3 of the Big 12, but I think this thing is finally headed in the right direction.
If you're Dana Holgerson, what's your rally cry going into the K-State game? Because you're already bowl eligible. You're not really fighting for a bowl. You're not going to jump into the top 3 in the conference. What's the rally cry? How do you get the team motivated to go to K-State next week?
We're 0-3 against them, and they beat us down. 2 out of the 3 they beat us down, and we completely shut them down last year. I think they had 1 yard rushing against us last year, but we gave up a big play to Tyler Lockett in the kicking game, and we had some turnovers. And Kansas State's the kind of team that they capitalize off your mistakes.
Do you worry that they're going to announce Snyder's retirement?
No, he already said he's coming back.
Okay,
next year.
okay, I missed that.
But I mean, come on.
That's good for us.
Yeah, if you've watched Kansas State, they don't have a quarterback. Yeah. They do not have a quarterback. They had a kid back there who hadn't played quarterback in his life. So we should be able to take that out of the game and be able to sell out against the run. And they're well coached. They're going to have some stuff for us, but the way this defense is playing, I think we'll be fine.
A couple of the things, obviously, and it's been the issue the whole season. Skylar missed a few passes yesterday. And if you come out and like Iowa State did, they came out and sold out to stop the run and try to force the pass. It's good to see, though, that we were able to kind of grind it out. Yeah. It didn't happen early where we were pounding them and hitting the big run plays, but we kind of pounded them, and then in the second half it just kind of took over.
We warm out. I think they said Pankey was hurt. I think that might have contributed to the run game not working in the first half. I don't think people realize how important the offensive line is. I mean, you look at stats and you see guys putting up passing yards, but if you don't have the offensive line in cohesion, you're going to have trouble.
I mean, and that's something I was wanting to get to, and we can start talking about, speaking of transformations, how it looks like through the October storm, Dana has kind of changed his offensive philosophy. Yeah, it pains him to not be able to throw the football. And you could listen to him in his press conference yesterday. But he'll say, hey, the bottom line is I want to win ball games, right? And we're going to run the football because that's what we do best.
I just think he looks at it schematically that, they got 7 or 8 guys in the box. We should be able to throw. Yeah. And when we can't throw, that drives him crazy.
Up the wall. I mean, that's the first thing he said yesterday.
We got a typical Skylar Howard game. Not great, but he made some plays with his feet. Threw a really nice deep ball to Shelton Gibson. Had a couple drops, but
he threw 2 nice deep balls. To Shelton Gibson.
I mean, he would have if he'd have made the one going in the end zone. That would have been an unbelievable catch. But that's what we got right now. I don't see any point. We beat that dead horse on this show with Durrett.
We beat it and kicked it.
Yeah, and he's good enough to beat Kansas, Texas Tech, Texas, Iowa State, probably Kansas State, and we'll have to address if he's our future in the offseason. Now's not the time to do that. And
I mean, he didn't look bad yesterday. I mean, the only thing that when I look at these numbers, especially in the rushing game, I look at yesterday. I think what it boiled down to, especially once I listened to Dana's press conference, was possessions. We weren't stopping Iowa State on third down, so we didn't get as many possessions as we usually do. So Smallwood only got the ball 15 times yesterday, which kind of shocked me. But and Skylar Howard ran the ball 13 times yesterday, but he had 82 yards running the football.
He did, and he had a really nice touchdown run, which if I were giving helmet stickers, number 59, I think that's
Stone Underwood.
He pulled and made an unreal block. And the running game, you can take the running game away. And you got to be able to open it up with the passing game.
Yes, it's got to happen.
It's got to happen, and it's frustrating, but that was a weird first half. Iowa State faked 2 punts. I mean, they had 2 or 3 4th down conversions.
They ended up faking 3 for the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you knew that's what they were going to do. It was going to be a goofy game where their coach is going out and he's just not going to leave anything, I guess, in his belt. Bill Stewart used to say, I'm going to use all the bullets in my belt. Gun, yeah, and he did that.
Yeah, it was an interesting day. Good to see Shelton Gibson back. 6 catches, 148 yards. Obviously had the big 60-yard catch. Concerning to me that some of the young receivers have not progressed a little bit. But you know what? You're talking about freshmen.
It's a long season.
Yeah, it's a grinding.
I think that's the difference between upperclassmen and underclassmen is consistency.
Yeah, but the future's set. I mean,
there are a lot of playmakers out there. There's no doubt about that. They're going to get better too.
Yeah, I mean, tell you what, man, he's loaded at receiver.
We're loaded at receiver.
In the running game, all the running backs will be back, I believe.
Yeah, you got Wellman. Wellman will be a junior. Shell and Smallwood will be seniors.
So
the table's set on offense. I mean, we lose some guys on defense, but if like we've said 1,000 times, quarterback. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Obviously we're bowl eligible. We're sitting at 7 wins. I was looking at some of the bowl projections for West Virginia. It looks like just because of the position we're in, we're only going to probably end up in one of the 2 bowls. We'll probably end up in the Liberty Bowl again against an SEC opponent, or there's a possibility, which actually once I looked at it a little closer, I think this is my personal opinion. I think this will be the way it shakes out. Is they're projecting West Virginia to go to the Cactus Bowl in Arizona, which obviously there's a tie there, but that would be against a Pac-12 opponent. But it's in Chase Stadium where the Diamondbacks play. I can't imagine Mr. Kendrick not pulling every stop.
Trying to get West Virginia. I saw us in the Cactus Bowl this morning against Cal. I've seen people talking about the Texas Bowl. In Houston.
Yeah.
I've seen Liberty.
I think it'll be one of those 2 January 2nd bowl games. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. You never know how that shit's going to shake out. But, I mean, it would be good for West Virginia. I don't know if the Liberty Bowl would be real attractive to fans, although it's on a Saturday, and it's after New Year's this year. It's on January 2nd. So it's on a Saturday in Memphis. Seems like everybody had a good time down there last year. I think if it was matched against the right SEC opponent, I think they could sell a lot of tickets in Memphis. Obviously, not a lot of fans are going to go to Arizona, but like I said, I can't imagine Mr. Kendrick not pulling all the stops, even going as far as buying 10,000 tickets just so he could throw. They
did that
party.
For the Fiesta Bowl, didn't they? They had to eat a bunch of tickets, and he picked up the tab.
Yeah. He's got money. He'll probably throw the biggest tailgate party in the world out there. I mean, it's like basically having the Mountaineers at your house. For him, they're playing in his stadium. So, but it looks like this Big 12 thing is starting to shake out a little bit too. Oklahoma, after they, leading up to our game, I thought, looking back at the West Virginia Oklahoma game, I thought it was a game that we could have got. And then, you start, then the way we were losing, it's like, wait a minute, is Oklahoma that good? They lose to Texas, and then are they that good? But all of a sudden, here at the end of the season, they've got all the cylinders firing, and they're looking pretty good here. Handled Oklahoma State last night.
I just don't think much of Oklahoma State. I think we completely let them off the hook. Iowa State had them beat. They're not that good. Yeah. But that's a win against the top 15 team on the road. That'll look good. That'll solidify their spot in the playoff. Everyone can quit worrying about a Big 12 getting in the Big 12 team getting in the playoff. Everyone can rest easy. We don't have to talk about adding Cincinnati and Central Florida to the Big 12 to get a championship game, which I've never understood or been in favor of. I think another thing that helps Oklahoma is they're Oklahoma. It was very easy for that committee to bump Baylor and TCU for Ohio State.
Yeah, and it was interesting too. I believe it was the Fox. It may have been the Fox crew last night. They were talking about the committee that makes up the, or no, it may have been something I saw about. It was like a conspiracy theory.
Joe Klatt.
It was the Joe Klatt thing I saw.
I mean, he lays it out pretty clearly.
And
there's a bias against the Big 12 and Pac-12.
Yeah,
it's more so based on style of play.
Right.
You got Barry Alvarez and Tom Osborne that are the head of the committee, and they're power football, old school Midwest guys, so they frown upon the up-tempo air raid. And he even went so far as to say that if you broke down points per possession, I think the Oklahoma State TCU game was a better defensive game than Alabama LSU, which no one wants to hear.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hear that. But yeah, it was an interesting perspective, and that was my first question. And I even, and personally, I don't think a one-loss team, Oklahoma team, deserves to be in there just because of that ugly loss. But then when you look at the teams surrounding them, and at the point yesterday when I made the comment, Notre Dame was knocking at the door. I thought this year Notre Dame, because they're Notre Dame, they take everybody's best shot. Although some years they're not as good as what the national media wants to try to portray them as. But just watching them this year, I think they're talented, but next year they're going to have to be dealt with. But I thought if they won last night, I thought that maybe they deserved to be in that top four, maybe even over an Oklahoma team, because the type of schedule they had to play, they went on the road and had to play some pretty tough opponents. Although I think them shitting the bed at BC, which was technically a home game for them,
right?
I think them shitting the bed at Boston College hurt them. But a 2-point loss at Clemson. But you know what? It doesn't break my heart that Notre Dame
I was
kept out.
Listen,
I'm not very sympathetic. I'm trying to stand back and be
reasonable.
Yeah, but it doesn't break my heart that Notre Dame's not in the Final Four. So it looks like it'll be Oklahoma, Alabama. Well, I guess they have to win the SEC championship. But right now, my top four is probably Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson. And, that fourth spot now, Michigan State looked good yesterday, but then you got Iowa sitting there undefeated.
That's a play-in game to me.
Let them fight it out.
That's a play-in game. People are ragging on Iowa, but, you apologize for Alabama losing to Ole Miss at home. You kind of justify, Texas beat Oklahoma. It's a rivalry game. Iowa doesn't have any losses. I know their schedule's not very good, but, they're undefeated.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I was talking with someone in the parking lot yesterday. College football's never been about who's the best team. It's always been about who has the best season. Every single year, one of the best teams doesn't win the national championship.
Right.
You can go back for 25 years, 30 years, but it's who has the best season. So Iowa's having, them and Clemson are having probably two of the best seasons, and they should be in the discussion. Now, I think Michigan State will beat Iowa, but I thought Nebraska was going to beat Iowa.
It's going to shake out because you know who else I'm putting on upset alert next week?
Clemson?
Yeah. You watch? I'm putting Clemson on.
Oh, yeah. North Carolina's good.
Have you watched them?
Yeah.
They move the football. They're explosive.
Yes.
They're fast. That quarterback's talented. That running back is fast. And they've got some good receivers. Now, whether they can stop anybody, I don't know. They messed around last night and let NC State
get back in the game.
Yeah.
Who's Clemson beat the last couple of weeks?
It's the typical ACC schedule. You start beating up on Wake and Virginia, and I think what hurts the ACC too is the fact that there's the Miamis of the world and the Virginia Techs of the world are average. And if Florida State's not in it, if you don't have a Tech or a Miami that are stepping up, it's really just Florida State and Clemson and the rest of the conference, just like it was before the pre-Big East rage.
Right. That'll be a good game. I'm looking forward to watching that. The ACC championship game for the most part has been pretty bad.
Awful.
A lot of empty seats. It hasn't worked out the way they envisioned it.
This might be the year.
Well, I think they envisioned it that Florida State and Miami would be playing a champion once in the regular season and then a championship game, and it just hadn't worked out like that. Now you have Clemson, which I think is probably an hour or two away from Charlotte, and Chapel Hill's an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah.
It's already sold out. It's going to be great.
Yeah. They want. Well, getting back to West Virginia bowls, what would you like to see as far as what would you like to see us end up?
For me, it's more about matchups. I would like to see us play maybe a SEC West team again. I've seen us against Arkansas. I think that would be an interesting matchup because they run the ball. Now that would be a home game for them.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to
in Memphis. Arkansas is right across the river, but that would be a good game. I can't remember us ever playing a Pac-12 team.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, in my lifetime,
I know. It seems like we played California before, maybe years ago.
I wouldn't mind playing a Pac-12 team. If I would have loved to have played Pitt in the Russell Athletic Bowl, but they lost, so that's probably
also
not reality.
Too the way it looks like it's shaken out is like a TCU, Oklahoma State, or something like that. It's going to end up there. It's going to be one of those top four teams, unless sometimes they can pick teams that are lower, but it looks like one of those top four teams are going to end up there. So if you had one of the SEC teams would be nice. I saw us match possibly against Tennessee.
That'd be fun.
Which would be how much whiskey do you think there would be people would be drinking down there at that damn bowl game? Be a lot of whiskey.
Yeah,
going down.
well, we play them, I think, in 2018.
Yeah,
in Charlotte. So that would be. I've always wanted to play Tennessee.
It's gonna be that would be an interesting matchup. I think if we ended up in that Cactus Bowl, you play a Pac-12 team. Man, I'd really love that Arizona matchup. I don't know if we.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it can happen now because of where they're sitting. But so if we're not going to get in Arizona, I'd like to go back to the Liberty Bowl and play like a Tennessee or an Arkansas. That'd be good for West Virginia. Well, let's shift gears here for a second. Obviously, some crazy news coming out of South Florida. Stedman Bailey this week was shot twice in the head. Not a lot of details since the initial news breaking, but just what a situation, man. The kid. When I say kid, I mean you hate to call a 23-year-old man a kid, but made some bad choices. Sitting on a 4-game suspension. And then he's at home for Thanksgiving break. It sounds like, and then some dumb shit like this happens.
It's senseless, man. It
really
is.
We're really living in a crazy world. And what I read of it was like him and his cousin, and there were like two kids in the back.
Two kids in the back.
And it was just like a pull up and started shooting type of thing. That could be any type of scenario. Then people start throwing stuff I'm not even going to repeat out just because they were just trying to make him seem like he's some bad dude or something. But really, and nothing's came out, and I don't know what happened, but it just sounds like to me that it was just. And this is the type of shit that happens sometimes. Kid does good, comes back to the neighborhood. Some jealous prick pulls up beside him, wants to make an example out of him, or the kids call them haters,
Well, first, I happened to catch this. The news started breaking, I think Tuesday or Wednesday night, I think, and on Twitter it just said shot in the head.
Yeah,
critical condition. I thought you're not going to pull through that. So he's going to pull through. He's not going to pass away, which is great. It's just hard to comment. We don't really know what happened.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. You hate to see a kid who, from my experience being around him at WVU a few times, really kind of like a soft-spoken kid, but a lot of times when they're around the press or if you're in like donor situations where you're at, golf tournaments or wherever you see these guys, sometimes they're soft-spoken because they can't come out like they would around the team. But he always seemed like a nice kid, very, well-spoken, very soft-spoken, and man, just awful.
He's kind of got a bad rep too, which I don't think is totally fair. I mean, he got suspended for taking a banned supplement. It wasn't HGH or steroids. They have a 9-page list of stuff you can't take, and some of those supplements show up in just regular stuff. Right. And he got suspended for that. I mean, he did get popped for smoking pot, but that doesn't make you a hardened criminal.
No.
It was a bad decision. There's no question about that. But
no, I know a lot of people, myself included, that have probably rolled a blunt in their day. So, that's, it's called what it is. But one of the positive things I did see was his, I don't know if it's his fiance or his wife. I don't think he's married, but fiance or girlfriend had posted just like a quick, it was like 12-second video, and it was just of his hand, but he's in the hospital bed, and she says, she's kind of like talking to him. She says, "You want to give everybody a thumbs up?" And he gives a thumbs up. So, we're here at the show. We're sending our well wishes down.
Absolutely,
to Florida.
He was a great ball player for us.
Yeah, and obviously, we've had conversations here. Probably the best pass catcher we've ever had.
In my opinion, he was. It's great to see Tavon Austin. He's going to wear his number for the rest of the year.
Did they
That's
that?
cool.
Yeah, I know at one point
so, yeah.
it was an issue, but yeah, they're brothers. Like,
Yeah.
did you see that interview with him?
Yeah, it was. It's sad, man.
Made the Harold Marm stand up. I mean, he's shaking.
Yeah,
he's shaking, and that he's like he said, and he goes, "I've spent 7 years with this guy. It's my brother, So, we want to send our well wishes down to Stephen Bailey and his family, and obviously his cousin too. His cousin was critically injured. Sounded like he was worse off than what Stephen was. So, just prayers for the whole family. Hope everything works out well down there. And real quick before we get into our guests, well, after the break, we're going to be joined by one of the all-time greats at WVU, Mike Logan, Super Bowl champion. Mike Logan won one or two with the Steelers. One, I believe.
One,
with
yeah.
the Steelers. But he's going to join us after the break. But just real quick, and we'll dive into this because it's stuff that we've talked about throughout the whole course the last few weeks, especially when we thought there could be a coaching change at West Virginia. The coaching carousel is it started to spin real fast yesterday, but one of the big job looks like it's done. It looks like LSU, Les Miles is staying at LSU. The AD came out and it was kind of like, well, this is our guy, like had his arm around him and this is our guy. And I'm thinking, if I'm Les Miles, I'll tell him to shove that job up their ass and I go somewhere else. But, he loves it down there. I just thought that was pretty dirty.
Well, I was listening to Herb Street at the tail end of the Oklahoma State game, and he said that they have probably the number one recruiting class coming in.
Yeah.
And it's not like, they've struggled. They got to number 2 in the initial playoff ranking, and they have struggled. But I don't know how many coaches there are that are better than Les Miles.
Yeah, well, who do you really think you're going to go get?
and he's won a national championship there. Granted, we helped him out a tremendous amount losing to Pitt.
Yeah.
But if a coach can win a national championship, why would you get rid of him? Herb Street said he needs to tweak some stuff. Yeah, he needs to work on his offense. He's real stubborn. But who out there on the list of candidates, and everyone heard Jimbo Fisher, who's better than Les Miles?
Not many.
And Nobody. That's why you don't. Saban. You do not let boosters run your program.
Yeah, these boosters got these checkbooks in there.
They do. Money talks, but they don't know how to run a college football. They might be successful businessmen. I'm sure they are, but they don't know how to relate to kids and what it takes to get kids through a whole season and have to depend on 19 to 22-year-olds. It's unbelievable that they would even consider firing him.
Yeah. Well, and then also, too, it looks like the Virginia Tech job, which is kind of goes back to one of our conversations we've been having. It looks like the Tech job is going to be taken. The Memphis coach, it sounds like he's headed to Tech, which was, that was interesting that happened so early. That was obviously just a report, but I haven't seen a contract but apparently he's out the door.
The thing that stands out with that though was Bud Foster gets to keep his job as defensive coordinator. So I think that would chase some people away. Like you can have the job, but he's still our defensive coordinator. You know how these coaches are. Well, they are type A, they don't want to be told what to do. They know, crazy. They're half crazy. And I can't see Coach Rodriguez walking into a situation where he doesn't have complete control over everything. Well,
he's not going to leave his guys in Arizona. He's not going to leave, Kurlav and those guys.
But that guy in Memphis is a hell of a coach. Now, who knows how it's going to translate to the ACC? But Memphis was a doormat, and he's turned them into they beat Ole Miss. They're a pretty competitive team.
Let me throw this at you now. Obviously we had a pretty rough October, and we sat here and pounded. I even at the end of it was pounding my fist on the table, pissed off thinking Dana Holgorsen wanted him out of there just over some bullshit play calling and just poor clock management. But 8-4 West Virginia team. Is Dana Holgorsen a hot commodity now with all the coaching changes that are going on around the country?
I don't think so.
Just the way it all could shake out. You don't think anybody will call him?
He might get some calls, but I would say his stock as this great offensive mind has decreased a little bit. But it could happen. We are going to have to redo his contract at the end of this year.
Yeah, something's going to happen there.
And I think he has leverage now, and part of his leverage is all these jobs opening up. But he says he loves Morgantown. I know his parents live up there. I don't think he's going to leave. But I never thought Rodriguez would leave either.
Well, that was a whole different scenario.
It was a whole different scenario. I think the athletic director we have, I give our athletic director a lot of credit for not saying anything during our struggles.
Yeah.
He didn't give the dreaded vote of confidence. He just, like us fans should have done, he's letting the season play out. And we'll evaluate at the end of the year, which is smart. That's why he's an AD and me and you are doing the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. But, I'll interview for any AD jobs that come up.
Yeah,
if
me
anybody
too.
wants to interview John and I for an AD job, just let us know. We'll come and we'll talk to you guys about it.
But you can't be reactionary in these situations.
That's just what fans do. They flip out. I mean, they just flip out. Probably every day, everybody was nice and calm yesterday. It's a nice win. You're drinking beer. You lose a ball game, and people instantly just flip the fuck out, which I don't know. I've never been one of those kind of folks. But we're going to take a break. I'm getting messages here from Mr. Mike Logan. So he'll be joining us after the break, and we'll be back just in a second. Do you love West Virginia? Check out Home Furnishings by Bearwood Company. Log into bearwoodcompany.com and put West Virginia pride in your decorating design. The Bearwood Company, always home. For the best in vintage advertising signs, World War II collectibles, collectible vinyl records, and coins, check out our friends at Red Fox Antiques and Collectibles in Scott Depot, right off I-64, exit 40. This isn't your grandma's antique shop. This is a mantique shop. For more information, check them out on Facebook or give them a call, 304-757-9589. The Dell Sparks Collection. Dell's documented WVU sports for over 30 years and features the greatest moments in Mountaineer history. Check out his magic moments from Major Harris, Pat White, Tavon Austin, and so many more. For all of your favorite Mountaineer moments printed and framed, visit dellsparks.com or give him a call, 304-296-6004. The Griffith Law Center, PLLC, a Charleston-based law firm servicing the entire state of West Virginia and parts of southern Kentucky, specializing in serious injuries, wrongful death, and wrongful termination. The Griffith Law Center. Now you have a friend that's a lawyer. Call today for a free consultation at 304-345-8999 or give them a visit on the web at protectingwv.com. For all of your web and graphic design, go with the best. Go with our friends at Loggerhead Designs. They're true graphic professionals. Anything from business cards to high-end websites. They can handle it all. The next time you need your ads to really pop, head over to loggerheaddesigns.com or call 910-541-0143. And welcome back to Section 304. Once again, I want to thank you guys. For those of you out there downloading the show, we appreciate you doing that week for week. And before we join our guest, I want to announce this week's Bearwood Company Fan of the Week. Mr. Brett Foster of Hurricane, West Virginia, is the Fan of the Week presented by Bearwood Company. If you want to get in the running, next week, actually, we'll be drawing the grand prize winner, one of those beautiful pieces of art from the Bearwood Company in the shape of the state of West Virginia. Send in your tailgate photos to section 304wv@gmail.com. So congratulations to Brett, and he's our Bearwood Company Fan of the Week. And we're joined now by Mr. Mike Logan. How are you doing this morning, Mike?
Doing well.
Well, first thing, thanks for coming on to the show. I know it took us a couple tries to get you on, but it's good to have you on, and we welcome you to Section 304.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, man, and just ripping and running with the hectic schedule. So we made it work some kind of way. So I'm here now.
Well, one of the things that we do on the show is we get guys like you on, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear what your time was like at West Virginia. And one of the things I'll kind of throw this out immediately is we want to talk to us a little bit about that defensive group that you played with at West Virginia. Obviously, we had Aaron Beasley on earlier this season, and he talked a lot about it. But just talk to us a little bit about that defense that you played on and the guys that you played with back there.
Well, back in that era, we weren't in the Big 12. We were in the Big East. So it was about smash mouth football. We weren't, trying to put 70 points up on the board or allow anyone to put that many points up against us. So we took pride in really just buckling down and playing physical, hard-nosed, tough defense. And some of the guys that you mentioned, like Aaron Beasley, myself, Dan Washington, Charles Emmanuel, we were in the secondary, but we still took pride in being physical. We still took pride in anyone catching a pass from us. We just took it to heart, and we developed that mentality that we were going to go out and be the number one defense in the nation, and we were able to accomplish that feat a couple times.
Hey, Mike, this is John. Last week on our show, we talked about old East rivalries, primarily Pitt. Tell me about going 4-0 against Pitt and what that meant to you being a WPIAL guy.
Well, it was very special for me because there's a little backdrop story to my Pittsburgh recruiting and how I got to West Virginia. I actually had planned on going to Pitt prior to making any decisions because one of my best friends, Jason Chavis at the time, was a McKeesport teammate of mine, and he had committed to go to Pitt. So I was thinking, well, maybe I'll be another McKeesport guy who will go to Pitt and follow behind him. But Pittsburgh did not offer me a full ride scholarship. They were the only Big East team at the time who did not offer me a full ride. And, of course, my pride was hurt. I took it in my heart that, well, I'm going down to West Virginia. I'll be their biggest rivalry, and I'll just kick their tail for 4 years. And that's what I was able to do.
Nobody ever claimed that that's the smartest group of people up there at the University of Pittsburgh. And you just kind of solidified that. I mean, who does not? That's crazy. It
was tough. It was tough, man.
And we were talking about this before we even started recording the show, and you talked a little bit about that smash mouth tough mentality. Talk a little bit about the play versus East Carolina where you stripped the receiver and took off the other way. Can you just kind of walk us through that a little bit? And it's a play that really stands out to a lot of WVU fans after all these years.
Yeah, I think that was probably my most defining play as a Mountaineer. Just going into that game, we were running a physical type of defense, and I remember Coach Steve Dunlap, we had seen the Pittsburgh Steelers, some of their concepts of how they were playing defense, and he always talked about creating turnovers. That was real big for our mentality as a defense. And he said anytime the ball goes up in the air, it's an opportunity for us to get the ball, just any type of way. If we go out there and swipe it and try to create fumbles, or as defensive backs, we can try to get the ball. We had just as much right to the ball as the offense. So on that particular play, Barry Standing, a big receiver for East Carolina, will come out to try to throw the ball pretty quick. My reaction was a little late, so I didn't get the chance to break on the ball, but the ball was right in front of me. So I just reached out, and he had it in his hands, and I had it in my hands, and it was about who wanted the ball the most. And I guess I wanted it a little bit more, and I was able to rip it out of his hand. And I think they actually recorded it as a fumble recovery and not an interception because we both had our hands on it simultaneously, but I was able to come up with it.
You wouldn't think. I guess it is an interesting way to kind of record that play.
Yeah. I think they gave me credit for a fumble recovery as opposed to an interception, but either way, we were able to create a turnover, and it was just one of those times, in the game. I think it was in the fourth quarter. It was late in the game, and we were able to get the turnover and get some momentum going. And that's one of my ultimate plays. Definitely number one on the highlight reel.
Mike, this is John again. It seems to me, both in college and the NFL, that the defense is hamstrung a little bit with how, I guess, favorable the rules are now to passing the ball. Could you kind of talk about that? I know when you were at West Virginia, the defensive backs, it seems like they could be a lot more physical, and now you can't hardly touch. They might as well put your all's hands behind the back. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, it definitely makes it tough for today's defender to be able to go out there and play the type of physical defense that we were able to play. But I think it honed in our skills a lot more, too, because we worked competitively in practice. We had some great receivers that we were able to go up against. Ed Hill, Mike Baker, Rashawn Vanderpool. Those guys were challenging us day in and day out. And we weren't going to be bullied. We weren't going to back down. We figured that we would go out and play that physical type of style of defense. But in today's NFL and in today's collegiate football room where everything is so offensive, happy spread, happy 5-wide receiver sets and such, and people want to see the offense score, they're really tying the hands of defensive players. And I think it's unfortunate because while it's exciting to see, 60 points up on the board, see a lot of touchdowns being thrown, it's also, exciting to see a team pitch a shutout, a team go out there and really be tenacious and physical. So they're taken away from that. And you talk about, being from Pittsburgh and remembering the steel curtain and, some of the defensive backs who played in that era, Donnie Shell, Mel Blount, as physical as they played, can we still, will we ever see another great defensive back like that who was just as physical as they were with today's rules?
And you kind of led me right into the next question. You're a Western PA guy, and you were able to actually, when I talked to you a couple weeks ago, you were headed to Pittsburgh to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of your Super Bowl win. And I guess tell us what that's like. I mean, one, obviously winning a Super Bowl. Two, being from Western Pennsylvania and winning it with the Steelers. What was that like for you last week? Tell us about your weekend that lasted a couple weeks ago.
Well, it was a very, very special weekend. It's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since that Super Bowl. It brought the reality of how old I really am now because that time went by fast, and I'm looking back and I'm saying, wow, it was a decade ago. And being very fortunate and blessed to be able to spend a decade in the National Football League, I had a lot of time to reflect. And that weekend was very special for me and my family. My wife joined me as we went to celebrate with all of my former teammates who were able to make it up to Pittsburgh. And we shared a special bond with that team, the way we got it done, the way we prepared, how we won that Super Bowl. So we shared a lot of good memories about how the road traveled to win that Super Bowl was one of the most memorable things that will ever happen in life. And we were able to share that with a couple of special players, Antoine Randall, Hines Ward, Jerome Bettis. And when we all got back together, it was just like we picked up right from where we left off. I mean, guys still having fun, guys still making jokes. If we could just put that team and bottle it up and keep it forever, that is probably one of the most special teams that I've ever been a part of. And we were able to finish it off with a Super Bowl victory. So that'll be something that, I will cherish for the rest of my life, being a part of such a storied franchise with all the history and tradition that they have to back it up, and Super Bowl XL being one of the most memorable moments that they have in their history.
Mike, this is John again. I was going to ask, I mean, that's incredible. What was it like to be enshrined into the WVU Hall of Fame, and can you kind of reflect back on some of the highlights we hadn't discussed yet of being a Mountaineer?
That, for me, that may trump the Super Bowl for me, and I'll tell you why. I had a very adverse career down at West Virginia. I broke the same arm 3 times, and it was very frustrating for me as a defensive back to try to go out there and compete with this big cast on my hand. So I missed a lot of games during my tenure at West Virginia. And I didn't really have the stats to compete with, Hall of Fame type numbers. So I never imagined that I would be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, I had people telling me, the career I had at West Virginia, the games that I did play, that's what it would be judged on. But I just didn't think, with today's society and how everyone wants to see numbers, that my name would be called. So a real quick funny story. Oliver Luck at the time was the athletic director, and he calls me and he says, hey, Mike, he left me a voicemail and said there's something that I want to talk to you about. And I'm thinking that he's asking me to join the broadcast team because I have been in talks with, some people down there about joining the broadcast team. We were trying to work some things out. So I'm thinking, this is the call. So I give him a call back, and, I'm like, hey, Oliver, how's it going? He's like, I called you to tell you that you're going to be inducted into this year's, Hall of Fame class. And it still didn't hit me. I'm still thinking we're getting ready to talk about a contract. We're getting ready to talk about how I'm going to fit in and what my role is going to be, on the broadcast team. And so I'm talking, and I said, hold on. You said what? And he said, yeah, you're going to be inducted into the 2014 class, Athletic Hall of Fame at West Virginia University. And I went dead silent for at least 30 seconds. And he's like, hello, Mike, you still there? And it took a while for me to just digest that, really just let it saturate my mind for a minute. And a wave of emotions went through me at that exact moment. And I started to just think back to all the time that I spent down in West Virginia, being in Braxton Towers, and how many times I broke my arm and all the adversity, and even questioning if football was the route that I was chosen to go. But, that let me know that God put me in a West Virginia Mountaineer uniform for a reason, and allowed me to be able to have the accomplishments that I was able to accomplish while I was there.
Obviously, you stay pretty busy these days, and I know you don't get the opportunity to come back to Morgantown as much as probably you would like to. But just talk a little bit about, obviously, you had a great NFL career and you've won a Super Bowl. But when you come back to Morgantown, and a lot of the guys have talked about this, what is it like for you when you run into fans? Do you still feel the love here in West Virginia when you come back?
Most definitely. And it's a trip that I enjoy making. The last couple of years, it's been rough for me because the schedule hasn't permitted me to come back as often as I like, but I was able to attend the bowl game last year. I was able to come down to a couple games this year. And every time I come back to Morgantown, it reminds me of why I chose to go to West Virginia and why West Virginia chose me. It was the perfect place for me. It was very special. It'll always be embedded in my heart, and it'll always feel like my home away from home, even though I'm just a short ride up 79 from Morgantown. But every time I go back down there, people still remember who you are. People still treat you with respect. People still cherish the memories and the accomplishments that you were able to have when you're down there, and that's something that I'll enjoy for the rest of my life. And I'll always call Morgantown, West Virginia, my second home.
And real quick before we let you go here, I know you've got a busy morning ahead of you. Just real quick though, you mentioned Steve Dunlap, and I'll tell you what a cast of characters on that defensive side of the football. And real quick before we go, tell us your favorite Don Nehlen story, and then I want you to kind of talk about those defensive coaches, because that was a cat, especially Bill Kurlavich and all those guys. So tell us one of your favorite Don Nehlen stories, and then also dive in a little bit on some of those defensive coaches.
Well, I have a lot of special memories with Coach Don Nehlen. One of my favorite coaches, him and his wife, Mac Marianne, were very instrumental in my success of who I am as a person off the field. But I'll share a real quick story about, you have those exit meetings at the end of the year where it's you and Coach Nehlen, and they sit there, and he talks about your year and what he expects from you and what you were able to accomplish this year and what you need to work on in the offseason. And all the veteran guys used to tell me, if he looks out the window, you're not one of those special kids. He's just blowing smoke, basically. So they said if his eyes start to wander out the window and he's not looking at you, you should be a little worried because you're not one of those special guys. So we're engulfed in conversation, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking into his blue eyes, and I'm saying, if he looks out that window, man, I'm going to be crushed. And for a brief moment, I seen his eyes start to glare up, and I moved and actually stood up in front of the window so he would be looking directly at me. So even if his eyes started to wander out that window, he was going to see Mike Logan's face right in front of him. And, he told me at that moment that I was one of his special guys. And he told me, he actually called me, and I told Coach this with some of the most pressure and one of the best compliments that I've ever got, that I thought wasn't true, though. He called me one of the best athletes that he's ever recruited out of the state of Pennsylvania. And I had to go down a list of athletes that he's recruited out of the state of Pennsylvania. And I said, Coach, you can't put that type of pressure on me, man. You can't, say that. I mean, I'm thinking even Aaron Beasley was, a heck of an athlete. He was probably the best athlete on our team. Major Harris. I mean, you can go down the line of athletes that come from the state of Pennsylvania. But he let me know that I was one of his special guys, and I really took that to heart, and I continue to, be a part of his life. I still try to reach out to him and Marianne to see how they're doing. And Dawn will always be that guy for me.
Obviously, in real quick on the defensive side, I'm sure you've heard some, or you've got some tales to tell about some of those defensive coaches, Coach Dunlap and Kurlav, and some of those guys.
Now, Coach Kurlav, he coached the D-line when I was there, but I ended up probably spending just as much time with him as I did with my defensive back coach, who at the time, I went through Coach Dunlap, I went through Jerry Holmes at the time, I went through Kevin Ramsey, who were all special defensive backs coaches. And, to be a defensive coach, you got to have a little craziness in you. And when you look at Coach Kurlav and Coach Dunlap, they need to simplify what craziness is, but it's a kind of controlled craziness, because at the end of the day, we were able to produce results. And it was because of their coaching, their style, their mentality, that we were able to go out and be the number one defense in the nation. And when you sit down and talk to Coach Kurlav, as you have a conversation with him, he's going to give you a conversation that entails a lot of wisdom, a lot of things that you can take with you off the field. And I've been able to materialize that and bring it to fruition to some of the things that he's been able to teach me in my life. And I can't thank him enough for instilling those values and morals in my life.
Well, Michael, we're going to cut you loose, man. I know you've got a busy morning, but I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for joining us here on Section 304. It's been great talking to you. We'll get you back on again sometime, and I hope to see you, catch you in Morgantown next time when I'm in town. Hopefully we'll get to catch up again.
Well, you got my information. I enjoyed being on. It's just been a hectic schedule this offseason. I'm sitting here running the church right now. But I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Anytime, just give me a call.
All right. Take care, my friend.
All right, thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Logan joining us. He was heading to church, but we came in a little early to get him on the show. We've been working for a couple of weeks trying to get him on. But, when you talk about defense backs, you don't get too far down the list at all. If it doesn't come out first, Mike Logan, great defensive back, that 96 defense. We didn't even get to talk to him about the BC game in '93.
Right,
but
where he had the fumble.
And if I remember correctly, I think I've heard the story that maybe he was on the sideline and came in and came out, and it seemed like he was the one that said something to Coach Nealon like, "Hey, don't worry, Coach. We're going to get the ball back and score." And it seems like it was him. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, he was on some great teams there at West Virginia University. We just got phone there with Mike Logan, and now joining us, he's headed to – where are you heading? It's Matt's on the phone with us. Matt's heading to Cincinnati. We told you at the beginning of the show he was out on assignment. What are you doing in Cincinnati?
Obviously watching Tavon Austin scorch the Red Ryder BB gun.
Well, you're going to see a couple Mountaineers today. I think Pac-Man's back today. Was he?
Pac-Man should be back. Let's hope Pac-Man's back.
And then
I'd like to see Pac-Man take one to the house.
But so you're heading out to see the Rams today, and we talked a little bit about that earlier, that Stedman Bailey situation, and I believe Tavon's going to wear number 12 today.
Now he's wearing it the rest of the year, I believe. I'll find out. Try to grab some pictures. I mean, we got a late start. Mark Martin was dragging his ass this morning.
He probably worked till 4 o'clock in the morning, and on his day off.
I'm not sure how long he worked. He was doing something with his Marshall shell. He thought somebody would be upset if that didn't make it on air today. The dozens of viewers that he has on that Fox Stock Holiday show, he was worried they wouldn't get their Marshall fixed. Although I don't know if Marshall fans are really going to be watching, considering how that all went down Friday, and they got pecker slapped in Kentucky, but we'll see.
Well, we'll probably do better numbers than that show this week after that.
There's a possibility of that. I'm not going to tell Mark you said that, though, because that's bad enough I make fun of him.
He knows I got love for him.
And he's sitting behind me, so there is a possibility of him reaching around me, putting me in a chokehold, and win me out in the car. So I'm not sure that I want to go into that with him.
Well, we thought we'd bring you on. And instead of handing out the beer of the week, you can hand out the roadie of the week. So obviously you had the opportunity to check out the Mountaineers live and in person. Although apparently you maybe dropped your keys or something in the parking lot. I heard you left out of there at the end of the first
Yeah,
quarter.
word on the street was you left early, Durrett.
I left at the end of the third, boys. I had to drive home. I was worried about the weather, and the game was pretty much locked up when I left. I had to get an early start home because I had to get up early this morning. Well, I thought I needed to get up early this morning. I didn't know that Mark would be late picking me up, so I could have slept in a little longer. Probably could have stayed through the fourth, but I stayed for the most important parts of the game. I stayed for the most important parts. I got to see it live. Crowd was a little weak, I thought, but that's to be expected after Thanksgiving break, no students. I thought it would have been a better turnout for senior day, but a senior's not going to get my rodeo of the week. It's going to go to Shelton Gibson.
Oh, he's back.
Put up monster numbers yesterday. Looked really good at receiver. Made Skyler look like a capable quarterback, but, we still all know that he's not. But I thought it was pretty solid. Snyder doesn't announce his retirement. Manhattan, tough enough place to play without that being Snyder's last game. But I look forward to finish strong and beat K-State this Saturday at 4:30.
Well, actually, we talked about that earlier. It doesn't look like he's going to be taken off. So it sounds like he's coming back next year, so we don't have to worry about that. And real quick, what do you think? Obviously, we're sitting at 7-5. Is your blood pressure down a little bit? Or are you a little bit more okay with the way the season's?
The doctors prescribe me pills to maintain my blood pressure. So that's not really – that's controlled by medication anyway. But 7-5, Sal, we're 7-4, aren't we?
Yeah, 7-4. Could be 8-4.
7-4. 7-4 should be 8-4. Get a bowl win. It looks like we're projected to go to Memphis. That could get interesting if I get loose on Beale Street. So we'll see. I would think 8-4 is okay, but I'm still pissed off we lost to Oklahoma State. I'm not happy about that still, but it is what it is. The chips fall where they may.
All right, my man. Well, you guys have a safe trip down there. Give Powers a ball slap for us and tell Mark Martin we said hello. Yeah, you're gonna be seeing. You'll see Mario Alford as well. Alford's playing.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot on display up here. You get Pac-Man, Alford, Tavon. Should unfortunately, like you guys said earlier, Stedman won't be in attendance, but he wouldn't have played anyway because of the marijuana problem that he seems to not be able to kick. And but yeah, it should be a good day. Should be a pretty good time.
All right, man. Well, you guys have a safe trip. We'll catch up with you. We don't know if we get you back next week or not. Is it next week you're going to be gone?
Nah, next weekend I'm heading up. I was hoping to see Money Manziel lead the Cleveland Browns up and down the field.
Speaking of drug problems.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, he's got a problem with drinking. He's not on drugs. He's just drinking. He's off Tooskies and stays on champagne. Can't stay out of the nightclub, and he lets people video him on his cell phone. That's a dumb problem.
What an idiot.
We're headed up to Cincinnati and Cleveland next week in Cleveland. So I'll be up there freezing my sack off right there on the old the lakes, right there where the Cleveland Stadium is located. But I could probably get in touch with you guys again next week on the way up there, and we'll do it all the same next week.
All right, man. Well, we'll be in touch. We've got some hoops to watch starting next Saturday we play again. So we'll catch up with you. You guys have a good time out there.
All right, later on, fellas.
All right, man. Well, obviously we just finished up the Vegas tournament, speaking of hoops. Didn't get to see us against California, but it doesn't look like California is as good as a team as what was projected going into that thing. Like, they lost 2 games out there. And
Richmond was pretty good. Yeah. I was impressed with them. We didn't play good against them.
No, well, they bring that Princeton.
They zoned us, man, and we're not a good team against the zone. And I think Williams carried the team against Richmond, and he was tired against San Diego State. But the other guys stepped in, and Daxter Miles struggled against Richmond. He comes in against San Diego State and looked great. We had 5 guys in double figures against San Diego State. I was impressed. I thought we played well. It was kind of unfair to San Diego State. They played at midnight Eastern time, so 9 out there, and then they have to turn around and play us. Can you imagine trying to prepare for the press in like a 2-hour session?
Yeah, that's not a 2-hour type of you don't get that on film study, that's for sure.
No, and I listened to Hugs post game. He was pretty happy. To make that guy happy, you have to play pretty well. And he was pretty happy after the San Diego State game. They're athletic. They've been pretty good under Fisher for the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, Hugs was happy because he knew he was sending the team home. He had about an extra day or two in Vegas. So I'd be pretty damn excited myself if I was Hugs. And obviously they got a week off, and then they'll play
Kennesaw State.
Yeah, then it looks like Marshall's coming up soon.
Well, we play Virginia.
Oh, yeah, in the Garden.
I think in the Garden, that will be a very difficult game for them. We're still figuring out our half-court offense.
But it'll be a good game for them just to kind of get that test, because I tell you what, the Big 12 is going to be a little bit of a buzzsaw this year, and it's good to know though we're not going to be taking licks every night. We're going to be able to dish some out too, and that Virginia test will be good for them. Marshall's already started their preseason shit talking, so well, at least I'm glad that happened. And for those of you that didn't see it in the paper, D'Antoni came out and made reference to West Virginia's press. I can't remember who they played.
They lost an exhibition game to Newberry, a Division II team, and I guess that team pressed him, and he said, "We're not going to see anybody play this hard all year, like especially West Virginia. Like they press, but they don't play as hard as these guys."
Yeah.
We always come into that game sleepy.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you would provide us bulletin board material.
And I'm glad he did it, because I hate watching us sleepwalk through the first half.
Yeah,
of the game.
He's a better trash talker than he is a coach, because they're pretty bad. Hopefully this is the year. It always seems like we only beat them by 5 or 7 anyway. Hopefully this is the year we stomp them by like 35.
Yeah, get it over with, or let the women come back out and play.
Yeah, the Virginia game will be interesting. Virginia, I don't know how many people have watched Virginia. They've been really good the last 3 or 4 years, but they play a very deliberate, slow offense, and then their half-court defense is incredible. Statistically, it was better than Kentucky's last year, and we saw how good Kentucky was defensively, obviously. So that will be a clash of styles. Who dictates the pace of that game will win the game. If we can make them up-tempo and bother them with the press, I think we'll win. But if it's a game where we rely on our half-court offense, we might be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a good early test for West Virginia, getting ready to go into that Big 12 schedule. And then just looking around the other sports going on at West Virginia University, the women's soccer team lost in the Elite Eight to Penn State 2-0, which was weird because they were the 4 seed and they had to go to Penn State. So I don't know why that happened that way, but I don't know if it's in attendance numbers. If they look at attendance numbers, like how they do in the women's tournament, they'll look at your attendance figures, or the women's basketball tournament. So maybe that's where they got kind of screwed on that, but ended up dropping 2-0. But man,
they had a great year.
Oh, they set a lot of records up there. And Coach Brown, man, she's got it.
She's unbelievable.
It's like she's getting closer. Maybe next year she gets into that final. I'd like to see her win one here in the next year or two. But we go. I guess we'll talk real quick about K-State, and we talked about it earlier. The K-State game. I like us next week, 4:30. Well, 4:30 our time, so 3:30 out there. I like us next week. Like you said, our defense is kind of clicking. So it seems like they found their identity without Carl Joseph. Defense is clicking. Run the ball, play defense. Come out of there with your 8th win. Everybody's happy going into the bowl season. Maybe we end up in Memphis. Diddy will go down there and drink all the booze on Bill Street. I like us next week. I like us next week by 17. Actually,
we can't turn the ball over. They capitalize off mistakes. If we go down there and play like we played the last 4 games, I think we'll win probably pretty easily, man. Kansas State is not very good. They've struggled all year. Their quarterback situation is abysmal, and we ought to win by at least 2 touchdowns. I think the spread on that will probably be about 10. So if we win 8 games, can you really complain? We were
right about where I predicted.
Yeah.
I thought 7-8 wins on the season would be good for West Virginia this year. If they get 8, and then if they can go to a bowl and win 9, that's a very successful season for West Virginia. That's a whole lot of ifs.
We're laying the foundation to take the next step in the Big 12. We thought that would happen this year. It didn't happen. Hopefully we'll be 5-4. I think we were 5-4 last year. 2013 we were bad. 2012, we did not offensively, we were there. Defensively, we weren't in the ballpark.
Stop anybody on defense.
So now is the time to beat Kansas State, maybe win the bowl game, springboard to next year. And next year, the schedule's already out. It's not, the 4 best teams right in a row, 3 out of 4 on the road. So it's manageable. I mean,
very manageable.
Holgerson's job's safe. They need to work out the contract stuff. Hopefully we can extend him and he will continue to improve as a head coach. I mean, he had one clock management issue yesterday, but I like the direction he's heading as far as running the ball and playing defense.
And that's what's made me happy about the way this season it could potentially end up is his stubbornness through that 4 game, when we were just coming out and throwing the ball. And like I said, though, that looked like it was a whole lot of playing from behind.
Yeah.
Teams have done it against us when they've got behind. They can just throw it down the field. And that is the result of it. I don't think it had anything to do with his coaching. But, 5 years into it, he looks like he's learned on the job, and we're heading in the right direction.
Run opens up the pass, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we still got those playmakers. They're only going to get better.
Yeah,
so I'm optimistic. I mean, it would have been nice to have gone 10-2 this year, but the bottom looked like it was about to drop out, and it didn't.
To some, it did.
Well, you can't please everybody.
Yeah,
winning 10 or 11 games a year is not good enough in Baton Rouge. I don't know. Their fans are delusional. I don't think they remember pre-Saban. They weren't very good.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. Well, like I said, win next weekend. You're 8-4.
Probably ranked too.
Yeah, I think so. I think you'd be in the top 25 because that mix. If you can be 8-4 overall and have a winning season, and you've lost to the top 4 teams in the Big 12, I think you'd put you somewhere close to the top 25. So we'll see how that shakes out next weekend. West Virginia plays 4:30 at K-State. We like them to win, but we'll see what happens. So we're going to dip out of here. Thanks to Mike Logan for joining us this week. Good to catch up with him. And thank you guys for downloading the show, checking us out. Make sure you're still out there spreading the word. It's a grassroots effort, man. We're literally out knocking on doors and telling people one by one how to find the show. If you enjoy the show, tell your friends about us. We really appreciate it.
Tell 2 friends.
Yeah, tell 2 friends. But we appreciate it, and we thank you guys for checking us out this week on Section 304.
The producer for Section 304 is Steve Adams for SAA Productions. SAA Productions specializes in affordable, small-scale audio and video projects. Wanting to jump on the podcast bandwagon? Call 304-299-1234. That's 304-299-1234. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and on Twitter.